Joining me now is someone I love talking to about rule of law, courts, everything. Congressman Jamie Raskin. He led the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. He is now the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. So I know you have a lot of thoughts on what transpired this week, but I just want to start just with, because I'm sure you've thought about this. It takes 4 justices to decide to take up a case. And when they take up a case, they don't have to take up cases. Of course, they decide to not take up plenty of cases all the time. They are sort of throwing out there the notion that this is an open question. How do you think about that?
This was an obvious case not to take up and just to let the D.C. Circuit Court ruling stand. It's a completely exhaustive and totally compelling decision saying that the claim that the president can escape criminal prosecution for criminal acts that he conducts in office is utterly antithetical to everything that we know about our Constitution. We don't have a king here. We had a revolution against a king, and the Constitution is written so the president's main job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not faithfully violated in his own interest. And
history tells us that, too. Now, I've been trying to figure this out. I don't know if you have an answer for us, but they could have decided back in December when Jack Smith asked them to decide if they were going to take up this case. They could have decided then to do it or not. Why do you think they didn't?
If they really wanted to pronounce on this complete banality, this totally obvious point, they could have taken it up in December and sent it back a day or two later.
Right.
And at this point, I mean, I don't want to be crying over spilt milk, but they're going to hear it on April 22nd. I hope that we will get a decision from the court April 23rd or 24th, because as we saw in Bush versus Gore, they can move at Josh Hawley type speed when they want to get something done. And in Bush versus Gore, I think that they rendered their opinion the day after oral argument, and that's what America should expect here.
Now, there's one theory here that the reason it's been so delayed is that there is a dissent, that someone thinks that presidents are immune, or more than one person. Do you think that on this court?
Well, what they did was they opened up the question to something much larger than what needs to be decided. The very specific question is if a president engages in insurrectionary activity in order to overthrow an election. He's lost by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. Is he immune from criminal prosecution for criminal acts undertaken in pursuit of that plan? Well, that's a very specific and clean question. And this court has always insisted that it's a minimalist court. It wants to look at the most specific question. But here they opened it up to the far broader question of if the president engages in some actions that lead to criminal prosecution, is he subject to them depending on the definition of what's an official act and what's not?
Now, these justices know what their powers are, right? They know the court's schedule. They have the same calendar. Do you look at this court and think some of these justices may want to delay these trials?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you don't believe that, you're too innocent to be let out of the house by yourself at this point. I mean, this is a court driven by both Trump nominees and Bush nominees, and neither of those guys was elected with a popular vote majority. So we've got a Supreme Court that is representing the choices of minority presidents, and they have been driving very hard to overturn a whole series of precedents that America's come to take for granted, like Roe versus Wade. And we're still dealing with the tremendous aftershock of the Dobbs decision as America wakes up to the fact that it's right-wing state legislators in a lot of states now who are deciding the destiny of women.
Yeah, I mean, activism has influence. There's no question about that, has influence. They're not free from influence. So I want to repeat this because I think it's so important. I'll talk about this later in the show, too. The Department of Justice 60-day rule does not prevent a trial from moving forward in September and October because he's already been indicted. Judge Chutkan, we've all been watching her. She's going to be under tremendous pressure, of course, to decide if it should move forward. One, would you be comfortable with a trial moving forward in September and October if we get there? It is close to the election. And what do you think she will do?
Look, I think that the rule of law should proceed. If trials have been set, as there was a trial set for Monday, for tomorrow, they should proceed without totally unusual, indeed extraordinary intervention by the Supreme Court. Having said that, I don't want to build up the trial in D.C. to be, the be-all and the end-all of this process. I mean, Donald Trump already owes more than $500 million because he's been cooking the books and lying about the value of his properties in New York. He's already been found to be responsible unanimously by a jury of his peers for sexually assaulting, for raping,
and then defaming someone,
and then defaming the woman that he raped, repeatedly defaming her. So shouldn't that be enough? So, I don't want to build it up like, well, if we get this decision, then America will be able to do the right thing. But without it, the American electorate will have to disregard everything we know about Donald Trump, who is a vicious self-promoter and narcissist, and somebody who is constantly in spectacular disrespect of the rule of law. And he has no program for the country other than to get him and his family back into office so they can revive their process of enriching themselves.
This is also true and so important for people to hear what you just said, is that we know a lot about him already. He's done these things in broad daylight, and he has already been convicted in some cases that should really make people question.
And I got to say, I've got friends on the Hill who say, they don't want to see him on trial 6 weeks or 8 weeks before the election because he loves nothing better than to strike the pose of a martyr. He's in all these prosecutions because of the offenses he's committed, but he would love to say, look what's happened to me right before the election.
Do you worry about that, or you think let's just see where it is and they should have the ability to move forward if they're at that point?
I mean, it's hard to remember what it was like, but it would be nice to think about the rule of law as being something separate from the campaign process. And of course, Donald Trump has merged them in his inimitable way simply because he's a one-man crime wave. And there's so many crimes and so many civil torts and wrongful actions out there that his past is coming back to haunt him.
Yeah, no question. I mean, part of Trump's desire to delay here, as you and I have talked about many times, is that he wants to get into office so he can end the trials or end the legal challenges against him by using any means possible. Do you worry that if these trials are delayed to the point where he gets into office, it will incentivize him to stay in office even longer?
Oh, sure. I mean, public office for him is just a get out of jail free card and bankruptcy protection. I mean, it's all about what's going to benefit him.
Yeah. So personally, to avoid jail, to avoid paying money, he could avoid that. I do want to turn to another topic here. There's plenty going on. You must be very tired because you have been doing a lot. But your colleagues on the Oversight Committee, the ones I'm talking about, they brought in Hunter Biden this week for a closed-door deposition after he said he would do it publicly. Now they want him to come back and do it publicly. It's all completely ludicrous. But this is just a week after we found out that their key witness has been receiving information from Russian sources.
Well,
Alexander
Smirnov started the whole thing.
Yes.
With this so-called 1023 form. And so he said that Hunter and Joe Biden got $10 million between them from Burisma in Ukraine. Now, David Weiss, who's the U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump in Delaware, who's now the special counsel in the Hunter Biden case, he is prosecuting and has indicted Smirnov for lying to the FBI and constructing a false documentary record. And he is up to his neck with Russian intelligence. And the whole thing now has a very strong whiff of a Russian active measure intelligence operation.
Your colleagues are barreling forward despite this. I mean, at a certain point, they're becoming Russian, unwittingly becoming Russian assets.
Well, after heralding this guy as their key star witness, now they're saying, oh, he didn't have much to do with it. We've got a lot of other evidence. But right now, we've got a potential Russian asset or agent in jail for making up lies and telling them to the U.S. government. We've got another of their star witnesses who is an accused accomplice to Chinese intelligence, who's on the lam that the U.S. government is looking for. And every one of their star witnesses turns out to be either deeply suspect and entrenched in Russian or Chinese intelligence, or just a buffoon like Tony Bobulinski.
You cannot make it up. It's a movie. Congressman Jamie Raskin, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in. Great talking with you.